Hi, I'm Caroline. Thank you for joining me for this menopause yoga session today. We're going to be concentrating on supporting our sleep, so good rest and getting some sleep. And this can be really tough through the perimenopause years and menopause years, and even post-menopause. Many women do suffer from insomnia. And there's lots of different reasons for this. Obviously, the fluctuation in the hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. But also, we often have worries, anxieties, fatigue. We can be overtired. And sometimes it's just about taking time for ourselves. So we want to work with the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the science part of it. And that's the part of our nervous system that allows us to calm down. It's the rest and digest side. But also we want to be able to work with our minds and be able to calm, slow, and gently support them to get a good night's sleep. So yoga is perfect for that. We're going to begin today with some breathing, just to slow our minds down, come into ourselves, really be able to center and ground ourselves. And then we'll go through a few yoga positions, shapes, poses, I like to call them, to stretch the body out. And if you imagine all the muscles and tendons and ligaments, it can feel quite tight at the end of a day. And if they're tight like that, it's really hard for them to relax and to soften. So we'll stretch them out, soften them out, and it'll be a lot easier, or hopefully a lot easier, to fall asleep. So you'll see I've got a few props around me today. You don't need yoga props to work with this practice today. I've got lots of alternatives. So I've got a blanket here, which can feel really nice for the head, under the head. And I've got a yoga strap, and a really good alternative is a belt from a bathrobe or dressing gown. A scarf can work really well as well. A men's tie, if you've got one in the house, or even a normal belt, a belt that you would put on with jeans. So that can work as well too. My yoga block, something to sit on. So we are going to start seated. So you're welcome to sit on the floor if that feels okay for you. And I'll explain how the best way to sit is when we get started. But the option is there to sit on a chair as well. And I've got a chair out. We're going to use that at the end of our session for our relaxation. So it's worth having a chair or having access to a sofa or maybe coffee table nearby. And then I've got a yoga bolster here, and an alternative I use is 2 or 3 pillows. So as many pillows as you feel you need. So having a few pillows or cushions can really help, or be an alternative to a yoga bolster. So to begin with, we're going to start with a simple breathing technique. And I'm going to sit on some height here, and I'll show you why. Once I come to sitting cross-legged or maybe kneeling, I find it really hard for my knees to drop down, and we want our knees to be level with or a little lower than our hips. That's partly to allow the hips a bit of space to soften, but also we want our belly to rise and fall with the breath. And if our legs are quite high up, that's really hard. It can restrict our breathing. So if I've got some height, straight away, even my legs are crossed, you'll notice my knees have dropped and my belly's got lots of space to breathe as well. An alternative way to sit is to sit kneeling, as I started, but also to have a bit of height under your glutes. So if you've got a little bit of height, it takes the pressure off the knees and the ankles, and that can feel really nice. And if either of these positions doesn't feel good for you, seated in a chair, making sure the feet are parallel and very much grounded on the floor is a perfect alternative. So a little bit of height, even if you're super flexible, and that's going to also bring some space to the lower back. So finding your comfortable position. It might take a moment to fidget, to feel comfortable in whichever position you've chosen, and knowing that if it doesn't feel right at any point through the practice, just to come out of it, to change the position. Once you're feeling settled, a sense of grounding, and by that I just mean the contact through the glutes and the sitting bones on the surface you're sitting on. So either on some height or on a chair. Just notice that contact through to the earth to feel grounded. And then finding length through the spine. So we've got a tendency to walk around all day or work at desks, even just sitting on sofas, is to slouch a little. So trying to find some length and softness in the shoulders here as well. And the hands can just rest where it feels comfortable. Maybe that's on the knees, maybe that's towards the belly. I like to tuck my chin in just a couple of centimeters, and this is because I know I stick my chin out. So I drop it down a little, It's just going to bring some more length to the back of the neck. And maybe you're able to lift the chest, the sternum just a little more to find some more space in the chest cavity for the breath. And then from here, you're welcome to soften your gaze. Maybe you just look towards the floor without dropping the chin, or maybe it feels okay to close your eyes. If you can today, breathing in and out through our nose. And this is an efficient way to breathe, breathing in and out through our nose. So as the breath enters the nose, the blood vessels on the inside of the nose warm the breath. And the hairs in the nose catch any pollution or dust before the breath enters the lungs. Take a moment, notice what's going on in your head, your mind, if you've got a busy head today. And imagine all the thoughts and to-do lists, everything you're thinking about are like clouds in the sky. You can see them, you can notice them, even acknowledge them, but then allow them to pass through. Maybe you're able to start focusing on the breath, feeling the breath as you inhale and exhale, noticing the warmth and coolness of the air. Maybe you notice parts of the body move as you inhale and exhale. Following the breath, so following the breath in and out, using the breath as an anchor. So it's going to help us still our minds, calm our minds down. Maybe bringing the hands to the belly if they're not there already. And as you inhale, ballooning the belly, really expanding the belly, allowing it to inflate. And as you exhale, gently drawing the belly button, the navel, towards the spine. So it's not a strong drawing back, just a gentle drawing back. So breathing in to expand the belly and breathing out to bring the navel, the belly button towards the spine. And this action is encouraging a beautiful, full, complete breath. So we're trying to breathe as our body is meant to breathe. So we're consciously breathing. We can spend all day not thinking about our breath. But in yoga, we consciously breathe. So we ensure we're taking a lovely long breath to support our body and mind. And often as women, we can be very conscious of our bellies, our abdomens. So just giving yourself permission to expand the belly as you breathe in. Allow the belly to really balloon. And as you breathe out, bringing the belly button, the navel towards the spine. So this is called full diaphragmatic breathing. So for those of you that like to know a little bit about anatomy and physiology, the muscle under the rib cage is working with the breath. And at the same time, the drawing in and out of the belly, we're massaging the abdomen and the muscles in the abdomen. There's a natural draw of the pelvic floor. And as the muscle, the diaphragm, moves up and down, it's massaging our internal organs and even our heart. And this may come easily to you, this breathing technique. It might feel quite tough, restricted. So we're always working with our bodies in yoga, our own individual bodies. And never passing judgment, so not judging ourselves in any way. We're just working with our capacity, our ability to move, to make shapes with the body and to breathe. As you breathe in, maybe you notice the belly relax and the belly expand. And as you breathe out, the gentle drawing in. Maybe beginning to notice how the muscles of the abdomen are now working. Gently releasing the hands from the belly. And if your eyes are closed, tucking the chin in towards the chest. Opening the eyes and bringing the head back up to center. If you're still feeling comfortable as you are and your legs are crossed, changing the cross of the legs, feel free, please, to sit kneeling, sitting on a chair. We're going to work with our head and neck. So just making sure you feel comfortable in a seated position for a little longer. Maybe you already noticed that your mind is a little quieter after practicing simple breathing technique. And we're going to gently take our right ears towards the right shoulder. So a very small, gentle movement, just allowing the body to work out what's happening. And then maybe you take the ear a little closer. If you enjoy a slightly stronger practice or you're feeling like you want a little bit more, you can take the left fingertips out or reaching out through the hand a little. Breathing in, coming back to center, and then breathing out to take the left ear towards the left shoulder. Again, starting softly, and then maybe taking the ear a little closer, and maybe creeping the right hand out towards the side. Breathing in to come back up to center. And then we're going to take a glance over each shoulder. So a gentle twist through the neck. So breathing in and breathing out to take our gaze over the right shoulder. And so working with your neck. Our necks can sometimes feel stiff, tight, especially if we work at a desk. So working with your mobility, maybe you are able to take the gaze a little further over the shoulder, just being aware that we don't want to overstrain. So we're working to support our sleep. So it's a really gentle slowing down, a gentle practice. We're breathing in to come back to center and breathing out to take the gaze over the left shoulder. And breathing in to come back to center. We're going to start now by lying down. We'll move on to lying down. So if you are sitting on anything, a little bit of height, just moving that out the way. It can feel quite nice to have a pillow or something like a folded blanket under the head, and just making sure you've got your yoga belt or tie, the prop we're going to use in a moment, handy. So lying down, feet can be hip distance or a little wider. So this is where we're learning about our own bodies, just making sure it feels good for us on the mat or on the floor where you're practicing. So our bodies feel very different at different times of the day, different days. So you may want to take your feet out a little further away from the body. Maybe that feels a bit nicer, a bit more supportive for the lower back, or bringing the knees in. So just have a little play with that movement and just check it feels good for you. And the hands are coming to rest on the belly to begin with. And you may want to make a diamond shape, our thumbs and fingertips touching, almost like the shape of the womb. Yoni Shakti. It's a little mudra. So in yoga, we talk about hand gestures, which are mudras, just a connection with our feminine side. Allow the shoulders to soften down towards the ground. And we're going to begin by moving our arms. And we're going to try and work with the breath if we can. So as we breathe in, we're going to take the hands behind us. And as we breathe out, we're taking the hands back down towards the belly. Softness in the elbows, lovely bent elbows, breathing in to take the hands behind you. And breathing out to bring the hands back down towards the body. And if it feels more comfortable for you, you can take the hands down by the sides of the body. And trying to continue with our breath that we've been working on today. So breathing in, allowing the belly to rise. And breathing out to allow the belly to fall, to deflate. Slow movements here. So we're trying to slow down before we go to sleep or get ready for bed. So everything's quite slow, measured. If you know you'd like a little bit more of a stretch through the arms as you reach back, maybe you reach through the fingertips as well. Taking 2 more rounds like this. When you've completed your 2 rounds, we're going to take hold of the strap or the belt, the tie, whatever prop you're using today. And we're going to take it and we're going to plant the middle part of it around the ball of the right foot. So that's just under the toes there. And I've got a bend in my leg here and I'm holding both sides of my belt with my hands. You may have a long enough belt to allow you to have the elbows on the floor, and that can feel really nice and supportive for the shoulder, especially if you've got a shoulder injury. It feels a bit tight around the neck and the chest. So working wherever you can here. And with the leg bent, we're trying to get the heel towards the sky and the toes towards our face. So by doing that action, heels up, toes towards our face, we're creating a bit more length at the back of the leg. And then maybe you're able to straighten the leg a little bit more. If you get to a point where the leg is shaking, it just means you've got tight hips, tight hamstrings, bend the knee. We're trying to make this lovely and slow and supportive. And as you practice this more and more, it becomes a little easier and a little easier, like everything in life. So working to your ability, it's not about getting to the straight leg, it's about finding space in the back of the leg and stretching the muscles in the calves, the hamstrings as well. So we're working to do this in our own way. If your leg is straight, making sure you're pushing upwards through the ball of the foot, particularly the big toe side. And if your hamstrings, if all the muscles are shouting at you today, they feel quite tight, just making sure you're still breathing. And there's a softness across the face and the jaw. Sometimes when our bodies feel tight, we clench our jaws. From here, we're going to take both ends of our prop in our right hand. I'm going to bring the left hand down towards the floor. We're going to turn the right toes out and then take the right foot out towards the right hand side. And you can let the left knee gently fall out. It's like a counterbalance. You can keep a bend in the knee of the right leg, or maybe you straighten it. And we're still trying to reach through that heel. So the heel's moving away from us, the toes moving towards us. So you'll notice maybe you're getting a little bit of a stretch in the inner thighs, around the hips and the pelvis. Maybe you're not feeling it at all. If the belt's long enough, you can slide the hand all the way down and have the elbow on the floor. And what we want to try and do here is keep the hips and the pelvis level. So I haven't rocked to one side. I'm still very much level. We're going to breathe in and bring the legs back. So our starting position, swap hands. So it's the left hand on the prop now and the right hand's on the floor beside me. And I'm bringing my right leg across my body. So towards the left hand side. And this can feel really tight. So bring it back if it's too much. This is the IT band, runs from the ankle to the outside of the hip. And if you're a runner or you sit a lot or you cycle a lot, this can feel really tight. We're still aiming to reach through the heel, bring the toes towards the face, and even the foot towards the face a little if you can, still keeping the hips and the pelvis grounded. So remember, we're working with our own individual bodies here. So I can tell you today I'm feeling really tight. This is quite tight, but I'm making sure my breath hasn't changed. So I can still breathe and I can still relax my face and jaw. Bringing the leg back to center, taking the belt away, unhooking the belt, and then extending both legs. So I'll need to move those props out of the way. Just take a moment to notice between the two sides. Hopefully the right leg now feels a little bit longer, a little bit softer. And as we lie here, we can point and flex the toes. So pointing and flexing, squeezing the toes, just making some movement through the ankles and the feet. They can get quite tired, quite tight. Maybe windscreen wipering the feet. And then bringing the feet back towards the ground. So the legs are bent again, and we're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. And it might feel very different on the other side as well. So taking the prop on the ball of the foot, and that's just underneath the toes. And I'm reaching up. And remember, if you've got a long enough belt you're using or tie, you can have the elbows on the floor. And having a bend in the knee to begin with. So we're getting that alignment lovely and correct because we're reaching through the heels and the toes coming towards the face. Once you're there, we're trying to lift through the inner edge, the inner edge of the left foot. So that's the ball of the left foot, the left toe reaching up. And then maybe you are able to straighten the leg on this side. So if you are, just making sure you haven't gone too far. When I first started doing this many years ago, my legs would shake, my whole body would shake because it was so tight. And if that is you today, just bend the knee, bend the knee. Still find some space in the back of the leg, reaching through the heels. From here, we're taking our prop in the left hand, so we can take the left foot out towards the left-hand side. So turning the left toes out and then taking the left toes out, or left leg out, and allow the right knee to fall out towards the right-hand side as a counterbalance, and bring the right hand down to the floor beside you to help support you. So remember, we're trying not to go too far, so we don't rock to the left or the right. We're trying to keep the pelvis and the hips even, balanced. And if there is tightness, remember we're following the breath, so really concentrate on the breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Next, we're bringing the right knee back to center and the left leg back up to center, and we're changing the hand and the left leg's coming across the body. So remember, this can be the tight one with the IT band. Make sure the left hand is grounded to support you. And we're reaching through the left heel. Know that you can bend the knee a little if that feels better. Maybe you take the leg back a notch, just making sure it was working for you on this side. So it's not painful. We're looking for a bit of a stretch, but we're also looking to be able to still breathe, to soften the face and the jaw. Coming back to center, bending the knee, releasing the belt, releasing that prop. We can pop that to one side now. We won't be using it again. And maybe stretching the legs out again. Just notice how the legs feel. Maybe you would like to point and flex the heels, the feet again. Find some space in the ankles. And if you would like to, you can take the hands behind you and take a full body stretch. Just notice how that feels to have stretched the legs out. And then gently drawing the knees in. So we'll bring the knees in for a hug. This is called apanasana. So in yoga, there's a lot of Sanskrit words for all the poses. And we're drawing the knees in, and then we're going to let them go today. So this is a great one for massaging the abdomen. So before going to bed, this can be great for our digestive system. And then we'll plant the feet back down onto the ground, onto the floor. I'm going to bring the right ankle, the right outside of the right ankle onto the left knee. We're going to have the hands on the floor today, and we're going to gently draw the left knee in. Now, it doesn't need to be very much. It can just be a couple of centimeters. And the reason I'd like to teach this or demonstrate this without the use of the hands is as soon as we take to grab our leg, we tend to hunch up our shoulders. So with the hands down on the floor, we've softened the shoulders, no hands, and it means we've got all this lovely, beautiful space for the breath. And we're trying to cultivate a really lovely, slow, even breath to help us relax our mind and our body, ready for our sleep. If you know you want something a little bit stronger, if you like to work a little stronger, you can take the right hand and gently push away on the inside of the right thigh. Be aware not to press away on the knee. And that can maybe increase the stretch across the glutes, the hip flexors. And gently releasing the left foot down, and we'll move on to the other side. So planting the right foot, bringing the left ankle onto the right thigh and drawing the right knee in. And you may immediately notice the difference on both sides. I can feel this left glute's pretty tight, shouting at me today. And so we're dominant on one side. It's a bit like if you're right-handed or left-handed. One side's going to be a little bit stronger, but it's often a little bit tighter as well. So it depends on how we sit, how we walk. So many factors. And then reminding yourself, if you want something a little stronger, taking the left hand and gently pushing away on the inside of the left thigh. Always reminding yourself of the breath. And gently releasing the leg back down and the other foot. And you may want to draw the knees in. That can just feel really lovely and supportive after making those shapes with our body. We're going to move on to our sides now. So moving on to the side, and this is where you may want a cushion or a little bit of support from the neck. So I've got a blanket here. I'm just going to roll that over, a bit more support for my neck and my head. And the hands are coming out in front of us. So my knees are bent, my palms are coming out in front of us, palms together. And we're going to breathe in and take the top arm up and maybe a little behind us. So again, working with your flexibility and mobility, and breathing out to bring the hand back down to the opposite palm. We're just taking 4 movements like this. You may find you want to reach behind you with the top hand, and that feels really nice. It's a lovely one for stretching the pectoral muscles, the top, the fronts of our shoulders, chest. And then we're going to make 2 circles in one direction and 2 in the other. So I'm taking my hand around in a circle. And then working in the opposite direction. This may feel quite tight, especially if you're dominant on your right hand. And you work at a desk or on a laptop and a computer. And bringing the hands back together. We're going to move over to the other side. So you may just want to flip over at this point. I'll change sides on my mat so you can see what I'm demonstrating. And just making sure you've got a little bit of support for the head here. Fingertips, palms stacked. And we're breathing in to take one hand behind us. And breathing out to bring the hand back together. So again, noticing the difference between the 2 sides. It's a lovely important message, because as we bring our awareness to the difference between the 2 sides, it might mean we move differently during the day. So it's like a conscious awareness. I've lost count already. Hopefully that's 4 of those particular movements. And then we're going to make some circles. So 2 circles in one direction. And 2 circles in the opposite direction. And trying to avoid locking the elbow. So by that I mean always having a softness in the elbow. And coming back to center. Gently turning, if you can, towards the floor and pushing yourself up to sitting. We're going to come into a cat-cow movement here. That's what it's called, to mobilize the spine. I'm going to move my blanket out of the way. Now, it depends on how your wrists are feeling. So I'm going to suggest we make some wrist rolls here. Really spread the fingers. I like to call this my wrist dance. Maybe you feel quite tight in the hands. So you can bring a little bit of pressure through thumbs and just massaging the palm. So if you remember, we pointed and flexed the feet, moved the ankles, we've stretched the legs out. We've worked with the arms a little now and the hands. You can do a gentle tug of each finger. So we're trying to work with all the muscles, tendons and ligaments in the body. Maybe moving on to the other side. Gently applying this massage. And as we do this, we're relaxing and softening all the muscles, tendons and ligaments in the body. And as we soften them and they're allowed to lengthen, gentle tugs, it's easier for our body then to relax. It's easier for our body to get to sleep because we're relieving any tightness and tension. Another couple of finger dances feels really nice. And you may already notice the difference in the hands just by taking a minute to massage the palms and the fingers. We'll take the hands behind us. If kneeling, I should have said, if kneeling feels quite tough, again, remember you can sit on some height under the blocks, but you can also And with my blanket here, I can roll my blanket up and pop it underneath. And that will take some pressure off the knees as well. And you can add some padding, a pillow or a cushion underneath the ankles here. Feels really, really good to do that. We'll take the hands behind us. You can hold opposite wrist or clasp the hands, whatever feels good for you. And just gently reaching down and maybe away. So we're looking for a little bit of a stretch across the shoulders. Just gentle. And gently releasing the hands. So we'll come into our cat-cow. If the wrists feel too sore to do this, there's a couple of options here. You can have some height under the fingertips. So maybe that's again a folded blanket. I'll just demonstrate here. If my wrists are on the floor, it's maybe too high. My wrists are on the floor and I've got my fingertips on the blanket, and that's going to take a little bit of pressure out of the wrists. If you're working on a yoga mat, then you can just roll the edge over, and that creates a really nice support there. Another alternative is to come down to elbows as well. So we're going to have the hands otherwise under our shoulders. Really think about spreading the fingers. Think about putting the inner elbows in line with each other. Nice strong stable base for our shoulders, and the shoulders are gently moving away from the ears. So they may be up here. Let's see if we can soften them away from the ears. And my knees are roughly under my hips. We're going to take our gaze forwards. We're dropping the belly towards the floor, and my sitting bones are reaching up towards the sky. And then I'm curling the spine round. It's almost like we're arching the back. So you can imagine in this position, it's that angry cat or scared cat shape you may have seen in cartoons and pictures. And then as we drop the belly through, you can imagine the sacred cows in India, those lovely bellies as they wander the streets. So that's where the shapes come from. And if you feel able to, maybe you bring the breath into this movement now as well. So breathing in to look forwards and breathing out to curl the spine round. And maybe you're tucking the chin a little as well. It's going to make it stronger across the top of the back. Just reminding yourself to work with your body. You may be going slower or even slightly faster than me. So we're making our spine flexible, or encouraging some space in between the vertebrae here. And the flexibility of the spine is really important because it affects our breath. So as long as we can keep our back and our spine flexible, it's going to support our lungs and our breathing. Taking one last round. And then gently coming back, releasing the hands. And if that was too sore for the wrist, that felt too strong, you can do it seated, even in a chair. And I'm just going to quickly demonstrate here. We take the hands out, take the gaze up towards the sky, and then we can breathe out to curl all the way around. So it can work seated in a chair or even standing. That's another option. And it's a beautiful one for stretching out the back as well as the spine. So we're going to come into an extended child's pose now. And again, you may want some padding under the ankles and some padding under the knees. So I'll show you. The big toes are together, the knees wide apart. So remember, if your ankles and feet feel a bit too tight for this, find a way to support your body into it. If it doesn't feel right, maybe you just leave this part out. So that can feel really nice and supportive. I'm going to keep padding my hands forwards, and the gaze is towards the floor. My hands are about shoulder width apart, and I'm going to bring my elbows down here. Now, I know I can get my head towards the floor, but actually that's not what I'm looking for today. Today, because it's a restorative yoga practice, we're working with our sleep, we're going to have some support under our head. So the elbows are bent, the foreheads come towards the support, and we're going to be here for about a minute. So it's the forehead. It could be a couple of cushions. It could be 2 or 3 pillows, a few books, whatever you feel you can work with. And once you're there, soften the shoulders. Take the shoulders down the back, away from the ears. And maybe you close the eyes. And focusing on the breath, if you can, in and out through the nose. As you focus on the breath, following the inhalation and exhalation, noticing where the breath is moving into the body, which parts of the body you can feel moving with the breath. Gently using the hands to help yourself come up slowly, removing any height you were using under the head. This is where we're going to begin to quieten down our practice. So, as I said, this is a yoga practice to help support our sleep. And so it's a lovely one to do just before you get into bed. So ideally, you'd be in a position to quite literally roll into bed afterwards. Before we come into full relaxation, we're going to come into a forward fold. So coming into something called Paschimottanasana. I love that name. We're going to have our knees bent though for this one. So you may be familiar with this position. It normally looks a little like this. It's a forward fold with the legs straight. But today we're going to make sure it's really supportive. So I've got my bolster under my knees. Maybe you've got 2 or 3 pillows under the knees here. And I'm going to try and lift up through the sitting bones. So you'll feel your sitting bones hopefully on the ground. Find that lift through, lovely open chest. And then I'm going to breathe in and breathe out, folding forward. So it's imagine you're trying to get the heart towards the toes here. And it's going to feel really quiet. The elbows, the arms can just rest gently over the bolster or the pillows. You're looking towards the floor. If you have some more height, maybe you have some more cushions or pillows, maybe you can make a little stack and put them under your forehead, find a way. Otherwise, softening the gaze or closing the eyes. And making sure it's the heart leading this position, because that's going to encourage us to fold from our hips rather than our waist. Taking a moment here. It's almost like the belly, the chest is coming to rest on the upper thighs. And as your body gets used to being in this shape, in this position, maybe the head lowers a little more. Maybe you're able to take hold of ankles or feet. If you are, just making sure it's a quiet hold, so you're not gripping, it's just a light touch. Remember, we're trying to really soften everything in the body, not create any tension. And then from here, gently bringing the body back up to center. Once again, starting to really quieten down. So thinking about moving things gently and slowly. And this is where we're going to come to a position with our legs on the chair. So if you're working next to your bed, you can maybe work with the bed. And I will briefly demonstrate here. If you are next to the bed and you've got a pillow, that can feel really nice under the head. And I'm going to lie my blanket out here as well. So I'm going to show you a really simple technique that can feel really supportive for the mind. So if you're working next to the bed, it may be that you're able to have your legs supported by the side of the bed like this. If you're working somewhere else and you've got a chair nearby, the feet can rest here. Calf muscles can rest on the chair. So it feels really supportive, really relaxed. And the purpose of the blanket here is, for many of us in perimenopause, there's that description or that feeling of just wanting to go and hide away. I know often I'm just wanting to run away to a dark cave and just be on my own for a little while. So we're going to try and replicate that with our blankets or whatever prop you're using. Maybe it's a lovely cozy duvet. However, if you do get claustrophobic or get a little bit of anxiety, it might not be for you. So please do feel to try it, but come out at any point you need to. So I'm going to take my blanket that's almost over my head, and I'm going to take it around my head and I'm going to tuck it in. So I'm tucking it into my ears. So I'm actually blocking out any sound as well. I'm going to make it quite quiet. And if you wanted to, you could actually take the blanket over the eyes as well. If you had an eye pillow, that could feel quite nice, but this can work just as well. And once that's all tucked in, we're going to bring the blanket over, so making sure we're warm and we're in this position. So you may have your legs up against a bed or on a chair like me, and you can bring the hands underneath the blanket to the belly. So maybe you come back to that diamond shape on the belly. Make sure the shoulders are soft. And at any point this doesn't feel right, making sure you come out. So allowing the body to sink here, to sink into the ground, allowing your body to be supported by the ground and the props you're using. Have a sense of letting go. Almost a sense of just surrendering to relaxation. Sometimes we need to give ourselves permission to switch off, permission to feel supported, permission to relax. And as your body softens into the position you're in, become aware of any tightness around the jaw. Are you able to relax and soften the jaw and the facial muscles? You're allowed to let go of the shoulders. Can you let go of the shoulders? Allow them to be supported by the earth. There's no need to hold any tension or to hold any positions. The ground, the earth, maybe your bed or a chair is supporting you in relaxation. And staying here for 2 to 5 minutes, allowing the nervous system to slow down. Maybe the eyes are closed. Maybe you drift asleep here. Maybe you focus on the breath and notice a quietening of the mind. And when you're ready, when you feel you're ready for sleep, you're ready for bed, taking very small, gentle movements to maneuver yourself out of this position. So making sure everything's quiet as you gently transition into bed for a restful night's sleep.